everyone, I'm Claire, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to Holo Taco's most recent release, their 12-day mini advent calendar. If you've been watching my videos this year, then you know that I've been doing reaction videos for new releases because I'm not someone who gets PR from brands and I don't buy every collection as soon as it comes out or at all. I didn't buy the advent calendar and now it's sold out, so I won't be buying it. And that means I can't do a swatch and review like other creators, but I still want to be able to talk about new releases. So I like to go through all the polishes, and in this case other products as well, say how I feel about them, whether or not I would want them, that kind of thing. I'll also talk about the collection as a whole, the vibes, the finishes, the color story, and also how I feel about the fact that Holo Taco did an advent calendar, because I have thoughts, questions, concerns. I don't want to be super negative, but I do want to kind of weigh the pros and cons of an advent calendar versus their regular winter holiday release. And hopefully if you're also someone who's a little more selective about what you get, or you're on a low buy or a no buy, then seeing this approach to new collections is helpful for you. I definitely think that buying nail polish isn't the only way to enjoy it, so let's get into it. Holo Taco is a boutique nail polish brand based in the US and founded by Christine from the Simply Nailogical YouTube channel. Their holiday release this year was an advent calendar that included 8 polishes in a frosty wintry color palette and in mini 7ml bottles instead of their usual 12ml, along with 4 other products. And everything was limited edition and only available in the full set for $119, not sold individually. That's different from their normal holiday releases, which generally come in a limited edition collection box, but the polishes themselves aren't limited, and you can pick and choose which ones to buy if you don't want the full set. There will be spoilers for the calendar in this video because I'm going to be showing each item on screen as I go through and talk about each one. So if you don't want spoilers, you can go watch another one of my videos instead. So day 1. This is a black scattered hollow nail file. I'm not going to spend too much time on the nail accessories, but they are mostly variations on products Holo Taco already sells, in this case another color of nail file, with a black to white gradient and some holographic sparkle. And I think it's a decent inclusion. A lot of people might already have a nail file, but it can be nice to have a backup because even though the grit on glass files doesn't wear down, they can break. So it's good to have an extra just in case, or if you don't already have a good glass file, then it's a good first one to have. Now, normally I say if an item is going on my wish list or not, but in this case products aren't available individually and the calendar sold out on the first day it was available, so wish listing isn't really relevant. So because I didn't buy the calendar, I'm just gonna say whether or not I care that I'm missing each thing. In this case, I don't really mind. The nail file is pretty, but it doesn't feel that special to me, so I'm fine with the files I have. Then day 2 is the first polish called Silent Night. It's a navy blue plain crelly, meaning that it's kind of between a jelly and a cream in terms of opacity, and there's no specialty pigment in it. Now, if you watched my video reacting to Holo Taco's fall collections, then you know how I feel about Holo Taco releasing these dark crellies that mostly look like creams but take more coats to get full coverage, and they also don't seem to have the nail art and layering possibilities of jellies. Silent Night is the 4th. They also have the dark red, green, and purple variations. And I don't really see the point of these crellies. Like, yeah, some people might like that they're slightly translucent when you hold your nails up to the light, but I would rather have an opaque cream or a more translucent jelly that I can layer with toppers or use in lazy gradients. I would even settle for crellies in lighter colors like Icon on Board, which was the hot pink in the Bon Voyage collection, but I hope that we're done with these darker ones. That being said, I don't actually mind that Holo Taco included a non-specialty finish polish in the advent calendar. I've heard people say that for a limited edition collection it should be all specialty finish polishes, and I do agree that a plain crelly doesn't exactly seem worthy of being limited edition. We're doing this again, huh? Yeah. What do you want? Well, that's not ideal. Okay. I might have to evict you. But there are 3 toppers in this release, so I can see why they would want to include a more simple polish that can work as a base for all of those. And if you're opening the calendar one day at a time and don't know what's coming next, It kind of lets the excitement build to start with something less exciting and build up to the specialty finishes. So in theory, I don't mind that it's here, it's a nice shade of blue, but I also don't care that I'm missing it. I have a dark blue cream in my collection, and I prefer that to this Crowley. Day 3 is one of the toppers, Gold Scattered Holo Taco. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's the gold version of one of Holo Taco's original toppers, which was a silver scattered holo topper. So both versions add a dusting of holo to the nail, meaning that when the light hits them, they reflect a rainbow of colors, but they have different base colors outside of direct light. And this is probably the item in the calendar that I'm most upset to be missing, since I've been wanting a gold scattered holo topper. I have the silver version, and it's nice, but I don't like it over every base color, because there are times when I look at it out of direct light, and it's just like, yep, there's a bunch of silver dots on my nail. And I don't tend to like silver when it's not holo, but I do like gold, so I feel like I wouldn't mind the way it looks when I'm just seeing the gold and not the holo. So this is one where I'm like, man, why does it have to be limited edition? Based on what Christine said during the launch stream, it was hard to find the exact right gold holo pigment, which is why it does make sense from a supply chain standpoint to not try to have this polish always available. But in a more general sense, I don't like the idea of having limited edition toppers that aren't explicitly seasonal or something like that. Because a lot of us use our toppers again and again. Some of the most noticeable fill lines in my collection are in toppers because it's fun to play with different combos. But if you only give people 7 milliliters of a topper, it limits how much they can use it. And it's one thing if it's like a snowflake topper that most people would only use in the winter, but when it's something like a gold scattered holo, it could be a really versatile staple in people's collections if they could access it outside of an advent calendar. So yeah, I try not to get too upset about nail polish, but I am a little annoyed about this one. Day 4 is a specialty finish polish called Me Vixen, which is described as a deep cranberry shimmer with scattered holo. I have a lot less to say about this one. I do agree with Yanelli, who pointed out in her review that it's kind of funny we got a bright holiday red in the Halloween collection, and now we're getting a dark vampy red for winter, but I do think it still works for the season since it's kind of jewel-toned and very sparkly. Overall, I think it's a nice polish, but I don't really mind that I'm missing it. I probably wouldn't buy it even if it were available individually. I'm not usually drawn to reds, and while there are some exceptions, this isn't one of them. I have Holo Taco's Misfire, and for now it satisfies any desire that I have for a dark sparkly red. They are different, but I don't need both. Then day 5 is another polish called In a Flurry. It's described as a pale blue frosted metal with scattered holo. Frosted metal is what Holo Taco calls their polishes with large metallic flakes, usually silver, in a tinted base, and it's a bit of a divisive finish. Because for one thing, frosted metals don't photograph well, so people don't always buy them based on photos, but people do tend to like them more once they see them in person. And the other issue is that frosted metals have a tendency to tarnish over time because the metallic flakes don't always hold up very well. So we'll see what happens with this one. I only have a couple frosted metals, so I don't have a lot of personal experience with them, but I've heard that there are some that hold up pretty well and don't really change. But the one with probably the worst reputation was a medium blue from the first Frosted Metal collection. It was called Cold Shoulder, and for a lot of people it very quickly degraded into an unusable swamp, and then it was discontinued. So I'm very curious to see if Holo Taco actually addressed the issues with Cold Shoulder, so they won't happen to the same extent with In a Flurry. I think the theory was that the original Frosted Metals used real silver, and blue pigments often contain sulfur and silver don't get along well, which is what caused the formula to break down. So hopefully Holo Taco learned from that and hasn't made the same mistake, but Christine didn't really address it during the stream, except to say that all frosted metals have the possibility of tarnishing, so I don't know. When it comes to how I feel about missing this polish, I don't really mind. I'm okay with frosted metals, but I don't love them, so even though it's pretty, I wouldn't necessarily buy it if it were available individually. Now we're back to non-nail polish items for a bit. Day 6 is these silver nail art stickers, so it's 3 sheets of these silver star-shaped stickers that you can use on your nails. I've never used nail art stickers, so I don't really have much of an opinion on these. I know some people think that they're not as good a value as other items in the calendar, but I don't think that they're necessarily a bad thing to include, especially because there are a lot there. I don't really care that I'm missing them though. I don't like silver that much, so I don't know if I would actually use them. Then day 7 is a cleanup brush in a silver chrome finish. So a lot like Holo Taco's regular cleanup brush, but kind of more boring because that one has a rainbow chrome finish. Maybe some people prefer the silver, but to me it doesn't feel very special. I feel like it would be more fun to have something with a little more sparkle or an interesting design or something like that. But aside from the appearance, I don't have a problem with this being included. Cleanup brushes are really useful and they don't last forever since they come into contact with acetone and that will eventually break down the bristles, though there are things you can do to prevent that, like rinsing the brush after use and using nail oil on it. So always nice to have an extra, but I don't mind that I'm missing out on this specific one because I prefer Holo Taco's standard cleanup brush. Day 8 is a peppermint scented hand cream in a mini size compared to Holo Taco's regular hand creams. I think the regular size is 100 milliliters or around 3.5 ounces, and this is 30 ml or 1 ounce. Holo Taco's original hand cream is argan milk scented, and they also have a fragrance-free version, so doing a seasonal hand cream scent is new to them, but there is a precedent for them doing limited edition scents because they've done that a couple times with their nail oil. This is another thing that I think it's fine to include, though of course not everyone will enjoy a peppermint scent. Peppermint isn't a scent that I have strong feelings about, so I wouldn't mind having it if I had gotten the calendar, because I do like Holo Taco's hand cream generally, but I'm also okay with missing it. And now we're back to nail polish for the last 4 days. Day 9 is Pirouette Pink, which feels like the least on-theme name, but it's a pale pink crushed holo with a warm toned shimmer. Not really the kind of polish I expect in a winter collection, but it does work with the color story. And on its own, I think it's really pretty. I usually prefer brighter pinks, but I enjoy the combo of the base color and the shimmer, though you can't really see the shimmer very well in a lot of these swatches. It was more visible in some of the reviews that I watched. I also like the crushed holo finish, since I think all the tiny holo flakes give it a nice visual texture. But I'm not too upset to be missing it. I don't always really care if a polish is flattering on me, but I generally don't enjoy wearing light pinks because there's not enough contrast with my skin and I think it looks weird. So I probably wouldn't be getting this one even if I could. Next we've got another topper, Wreath Havoc Taco, which features green to purple multichrome flakes in a clear base. And this is another one that I'm kind of annoyed is limited edition and only available in the calendar. Holo Taco has one other multichrome flake topper called Fallen Flake Taco, which came out 2 years ago in the Down to Earth bundle. It's much more warm-toned, basically the kind of thing you use if you want it to look like there are fall leaves on your nails. And since then, people have been asking for more of that style of topper, since we have lots with iridescent and metallic flakes, but only the one with multichrome flakes. So it kind of bothers me that when they finally give people what they've been asking for, it's in such a limited capacity. I'm not as personally offended with this one as I was with Gold Scattered Holo Taco, though I probably would get this one if I could, since I think it's pretty. And the nice thing about multichrome flakes compared to iridescent is that they'll look vibrant over any color, when iridescent flakes can look kind of washed out over lighter colors. But I am annoyed on other people's behalf that they'll only be able to use this topper a limited amount because they can't buy another bottle. Though Christine has alluded to potentially bringing back a couple polishes from the calendar, and I feel like this might be a candidate because it was the most popular topper based on people voting during stream, and I don't remember her mentioning anything about this pigment being difficult to source. So we'll see. Hopefully it'll come back. Then day 11 is another full coverage polish, Ice Angel, which is described as an icy ivory linear holo, and it also has a golden shimmer. To me, this feels like if the polishes Circuit Breaker and Sugar Rush had a baby. Circuit Breaker is Holo Taco's standard silver linear holo, and Sugar Rush, which has been discontinued, was an off-white crushed holo with gold shimmer. So this is a nice in-between where it is very hollow, but it also has that warmth to it. And it feels very wintry to me, like sunlight reflecting off of snow, so it's a nice addition to the calendar. Not sure if I would get it though. I like the linear holo and shimmer combo, it's something I want to see more of, but I feel like I have things that are close enough to this vibe, so I don't mind that I'm missing it. And for the 12th and final day, we have another topper, Diamond Dasher Taco. This topper contains a variety of silver holographic glitter, mostly various sizes of hex glitter, but also some diamond-shaped glitter, which I think is the star of the show. So it's very fun, very festive, a good final polish for that reason. I don't mind quite as much that it's limited edition compared to the other toppers, because it does feel a little more holiday-inspired. Like, I'm sure there are people who would pull this out any time of year, but people like me are not necessarily looking for this level of bling all the time and might just pull it out for a couple of manis in December. Don't get me wrong, I would still love for this to be more widely available for the people who really like it, but it doesn't feel quite as much like they took something that could have been a staple in a lot of people's collections and made it super limited. It feels more like the kind of thing you might expect to be in a limited edition collection. And I don't mind too much that I'm missing it. If I had bought the advent calendar, then I'm sure I would find a way to use it and enjoy it, but I'm okay without it. Okay, so those are all of the polishes and products in Holo Taco's mini advent calendar, And now I want to take some time to talk about the collection as a whole, the color story, the finishes, the theme, before moving on to my general thoughts about the fact that Holo Taco decided to do an advent calendar when I feel like there were a lot of reasons not to do it. So, the color story. Simply said on stream that she didn't want to do a traditional Christmas palette, and I can definitely see that. It's more general wintry vibes with a dash of Christmas. Like we have the one reddish polish and a little green with Wreath, Havoc, Taco and gold and silver from the other toppers, but the blues and the pink and the ivory balance things out to make it more generic winter. I am happy with the palette that we got. I think it's pretty cohesive and there's a good balance between dark and light and between more colorful and neutral polishes, but I also wouldn't have minded a more Christmassy approach. Holo Taco has been pretty good with not always just doing Christmas in their winter collections. I think their 2021 glitter collection is the only one to do red and green. The others have been festive or wintry, but not those classic colors. So honestly, this palette is more repetitive than super Christmassy colors would have been. The light pink and light blue paired with a couple deeper shades kind of reminds me of the Underglow collection last year, which was 4 pastel shimmers and 2 darker shimmers. So especially because Christine has said that this is probably the only advent calendar that Holo Taco is going to do, I kind of feel like, why not really lean in and do a classic Christmas palette? I don't mind what we got, but that could have been fun. Then when it comes to the finishes, I like the variety that we got. If this were not a limited edition collection and more their standard holiday release, I would have been super happy to see 3 toppers. It's just the fact that they're limited that makes me a little annoyed. But I like that all the specialty finishes are different from each other, and I don't even mind the acrylic too much because it's good with the toppers. So yeah, they did a good job with that aspect of the collection, and I hope that we continue to see collections with this level of variety. For the theme, there's not a whole lot to say because they didn't put a lot into it. The polished names are just kind of generic winter holiday. I feel like it's pretty common for brands not to put that much effort into the theming for their holiday collections because it's just like, it's holiday, you know what that means. It makes me appreciate things like Holo Taco's After Party collection from a couple years ago that was very clearly party New Year's themed and not just like Christmas song title, reindeer names, type of winter weather, you know? Because of the way that the advent calendar packaging is decorated with all these cute little houses, I think it could have been fun to do some type of winter village Christmas town theming. Like the polished names could evoke going out and doing holiday shopping and ice skating and other activities, and then coming home to your cozy cabin and having a warm drink and waiting for Santa. I think that would have made it feel like more of a thoughtful, cohesive collection and not just generic winter. So those are my thoughts on the calendar itself, and now I want to move on to a more general discussion of advent calendars, why they're a thing, and why Holo Taco decided to make one. Because as someone who has never bought an advent calendar or cared about them, I don't think I understand what makes it worth it to have an advent calendar instead of Holo Taco's usual holiday collections. And I want to start by discussing what an advent calendar even is, because when I was a kid, even though I never had one, I was aware of them existing as a fairly simple thing, where you open up one section each day leading up to Christmas and get a piece of chocolate or something like that. But now there's a lot more variety, I think because brands started to realize that if they had surplus products that they hadn't been able to sell throughout the year, then they could throw them into an advent calendar and sell them that way. Though at this point there are also advent calendars that are thoughtfully curated with products designed for the calendar, like what Holo Taco did. So one way to categorize advent calendars is by number of days. There's the ones that have around 24 days, which is more aligned with how Advent works as a religious season, where it's the 4 weeks leading up to Christmas. But then there are also 12-day calendars, also usually meant to be opened in the time leading up to Christmas, because people don't always understand that the 12 days of Christmas actually refers to the time after Christmas and before Epiphany. And I've also seen brands doing advent calendars that aren't connected to Christmas at all, like a Halloween advent calendar with 13 days or something. I'm not religious, so I'm not personally bothered that the meaning of Advent has kind of been skewed, but I do think it's funny how far we've gotten from the original concept. Then another way that I would divide advent calendars is the ones that are a daily consumable treat, versus ones that are a series of mystery items. So that first category includes the traditional chocolate calendars, or like David's tea calendars, where you can try a different kind of tea each morning. The idea is to have a little treat that might not last beyond the day, but it's still something to look forward to. But then some calendars are mystery products, where the treat is opening them up and finding out what they are, but you're not necessarily going to use it all on that day. like a makeup calendar, or some of the ones I've seen when Mia Maples does her advent calendar videos. There's things like bath bombs and calendars and Swarovski crystal ornaments that are probably going to be around for longer than the day that you open them. So the idea is to have fun opening a lot of different products that you'll be able to continue using for a while. And then the last way that I would categorize calendars is the ones that are a good value versus ones that are just a cash grab. Again, a lot of my points of reference for these are Mia Maples' videos, where she's opened calendars from Chanel and Dior that cost over $1,000, but if you add up the cost of each item, it would be way less than that. So they aren't really worth the money just for the advent calendar experience. But then there are some, like the Swarovski crystal calendars or the Charlotte Tilbury makeup calendar, where the total price is high, but less than it would cost to buy all the items separately, so it's technically a good value. So where does Holo Taco fall in these categories? I think it's a pretty easy answer for the first two. It's a 12-day calendar, and the products aren't meant to be used up each day. They'll last beyond the 12 days that you open them. But what about value? For that, we have to do some math. So the total price of this calendar is $119. There are some items that it's easy to know the price of because they're very similar to existing Holo Taco products. Their nail file is $11 and their cleanup brush is $12. For the hand cream, the regular size is $16. So I'm going to say that the smaller version in the calendar is worth about $6. The math isn't exact on that, but it makes the other numbers work out better. And for stickers, I wasn't really sure how much they would cost, but I looked at nail art stickers from Cirque, and they charge $10 for about the same number of stickers. So the non-nail polish items come to $39, which leaves $80 for the nail polish, or $10 a bottle. So from there, I calculated the price per milliliter and compared it to Holo Taco's usual price per milliliter. It comes out to about $1.43 per milliliter for the advent calendar polishes. Holo Taco's usual bottles are 12 milliliters, and the price is different depending on the formula. For Crellies and toppers, it's $1.16 per milliliter. For most specialty finishes, it's $1.25, and linear holos are $1.33. So all of those have a lower price per milliliter than the mini bottles. And that does technically take this calendar out of the good value category, but I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's a cash grab. Based on how Simply talked about creating the calendar, I'm pretty sure that more expense went into it than into a standard Holo Taco collection, because there are new items and new bottles especially, I'm sure took a lot of prototyping and figuring out. So it's not just about the price of the polish itself, but the packaging, the time that went into it, all that. So while it's not a great value on the consumer side, I also don't think it's necessarily more profitable for Holo Taco than their usual releases. Kind of a worst of both worlds in a way. And that brings us to the question I've been leading up to for a while now. Why do an advent calendar in the first place when it seems like there are so many reasons not to? I don't know if it's just me because I'm not an advent calendar person, but I feel like on a pros and cons list, there would be more cons. In fact, let me break down what I think are the pros and cons of this collection. We'll start with the pros. I think one obvious one is that people apparently like advent calendars. They like the surprise of finding out what each day is. And I think that there are several aspects of the calendar that Holo Taco handled well. I appreciate that they made it with loyal customers in mind. There are no repeat products that people would already have. It's all new stuff, or at least new versions of good products. Really, I think the ideal customer for this calendar is the type of person who buys all the Holo Taco releases because they won't really care about not being able to pick and choose. I also think they've done a good job with letting people avoid spoilers if they want to be surprised, but also having spoilers available for people who wanted to know what they were buying. And this is kind of like the pros and cons list version of a backhanded compliment, but I appreciate that the products don't feel that special. Like, the polishes aren't so unique or interesting that I feel like I can't find them anywhere else, so it's not as big a deal to be missing out on them. The products aren't bad by any means, but I'm also not blown away, which means less FOMO. Alright, I turned the light on. I don't love how it looks with the overhead light on in here, but we were really losing daylight, so it's gonna have to work. But anyway, those were the main pros that I can think of. As far as the cons, like we discussed before, it's not a great value because you're paying more for the polish than you usually would. Also, the availability of the polishes is very limited. It makes sense to have new exclusive products in the advent calendar, but for those of us who don't want to spend $119, it means we can't get any of them. It's all or nothing. Like, the Birthstone collection last year was even more expensive than the calendar if you wanted the whole thing, but there was also the option to pick and choose and spend less. I get why they didn't have the polishes available separately, because in a way that defeats the purpose of an exclusive calendar, but considering that Simply has said that the majority of people who shop on launch day buy full collections, I feel like they still could have sold a lot of advent calendars even if the polishes were also available separately. I get why they didn't, but I still wish there was an option for people who didn't want the whole thing. Next, it sold out in less than a day. Holo Taco was actually doing pretty well for a while there when it came to keeping limited edition things in stock. Like in my first year of buying Holo Taco, the Sophia collection was really the only thing that sold out super fast. But since then, the 5th anniversary collection sold out kind of fast, and so did Birthstones and the David's Tea collab, and the 6th anniversary collection disappeared from the website sooner than it should have, and the limited aspects of the Halloween collection sold out quickly. I can forgive an occasional super fast sellout, but when it happens this often, it doesn't really feel like an accident or a miscalculation anymore. It feels like an intentional decision to not have stock around for a very long time. And I get that it's not good for business for a limited edition collection to stick around for months, but I feel like they should find a balance where limited stuff can at least be available for a few days, so more people who want it have a chance to get it, and shopping doesn't feel so frantic and FOMO-inducing. And if they're not able to make that much stock, then maybe it's time to scale up production. The next thing is something I also listed as a pro, but I feel like some of the products weren't that special. As someone who's not getting the calendar, I'm glad that I don't feel like I'm missing out on too much, but for the people who did get it, it would be nice if the non-nail polish items had more interesting designs, and if some of the polishes were more unique and exciting, and not things that feel like they should have been released in a non-limited collection as staple products, like the plain Crelly and some of the toppers. It seems like they had to compromise on some things to cut down on the cost, and that means the final product isn't as fun as it could be. And the last con I'll mention is that apparently this calendar was really difficult for Holo Taco to make. The cut-down video version of the launch livestream is literally called "Our Most Complicated and Expensive Release Ever." Compared to their other collections, there was a lot more that they had to figure out, with extra products, supply chain and tariffs, getting a whole new bottle, putting all the elements together in the packaging, just a lot going on. And they did all of that just to have nail polish in a different kind of box than usual that was only available for a few hours, and now it's gone. And I just don't understand why that's better than having these polishes as the usual holiday release, where the collection box is limited but the polishes aren't, and people can pick and choose the products they want based on preference and budget, and the non-nail polish items could have been launched alongside it, potentially as limited edition products or gifts with purchase or something. What we got isn't really all that different from a regular release. It was just super complicated and with limited availability. And is it worth it just so it can be called an advent calendar and you can open one thing a day? Like, you could technically do that with a regular release if you really wanted. I just need someone to explain to me what's so special about advent calendars, why you get excited about them, because I feel like I'm missing something. Apparently people like it because it did sell out, and it was successful for Holo Taco in that way. But if we really think about it, outside of the hype and the FOMO and the fact that it's marketed as an advent calendar, what are we really excited about? Why did Holo Taco decide to put in so much effort for this collection? I feel like I'm being a Grinch about it because I can't wrap my head around why it's beneficial to have a release like this instead of the usual holiday release. And maybe Christine agrees with me because she said they'll probably never do an advent calendar again, but I just want to understand why it was worth it to do it this time. It seems like a lot of work just to put a mostly arbitrary label on it, just to be able to say, we made an advent calendar. There's numbers on the boxes. I see why it could be fun, but considering the limited and exclusive products and the price point, I see more downsides than upsides. Okay, I feel like I'm repeating myself at this point, so I should probably wrap things up. I think that was basically all I have to say about the Holo Taco Mini Advent Calendar. It wasn't a bad set of products, but I would have liked it better as a not limited collection that didn't sell out in a few hours. But yeah, I think that's all I have for you today. Thank you to everyone who's watching till the end. Let me know in the comments how you feel about Holo Taco's first advent calendar, if you managed to get it, if you wanted it and missed out, if you're generally a fan of advent calendars, or if you're like me and don't really understand them. Like, I get that it's fun to have a little treat each day when it's something small like chocolate, but for a more expensive calendar like this, I don't really see the appeal. But if you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you would leave me a like or maybe even subscribe. Hyping videos is apparently also something you can do now. You could also follow me on Instagram, linked below. But thank you to everyone who has done any of that, and I'll see you next time. Bye!